What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, the Pittsburgh Steelers. What a wild day of news surrounding the black and gold. We're talking mock drafts, quarterbacks, different quarterbacks, coaching changes, non-coaching changes, and Deebo Samuels. What a busy day for those in the city of Pittsburgh and the fan base that is just patiently waiting for what is going to happen this offseason. It's a good one here in the Burgh. I think it's supposed to snow for like the next year and a half starting tomorrow because, you know, that damn groundhog. How you feel, my friend? Hope it's the same or not the same down there.
Yeah, I'm feeling good, but somebody did shake up the snow globe down here. It's snowing pretty good. We're supposed to get 6 to 7, which is different down here. And as I told you before, they don't pre-treat the roads. They don't know how to handle all this. So a lot of people are just being told to stay home, which is still wild to me, even after living down here for 5 years.
Yeah, that's I mean, I hear you. I hear you 100%. Pittsburgh doesn't know what a snowplow is. They don't own any. Nobody in the history of the Pittsburgh ever said we should buy a snowplow. We could probably use it. No, that was never the case. So I hear you. I hope that does not come our way. That would suck actually if it did, but you know, good time to hunker down. Bad time for there not to be any sports on. I guess you'll be watching the All-Star break this week. There's not even basketball. It's a bad time. It's a bad time to be snowed in the house. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I'll tell you this though. I know a lot of people on here might not like hockey, but Four Nations Face-Off is here this week, and I will be fully invested in best on best international hockey.
That's true. That one is very true. That's a good time. And then you get the NBA All-Star break this weekend. So there's some stuff. There's not nothing, you know. It's a good time. And you could just stare at Twitter because plenty of NFL news is always taking place, especially with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's start. Oh, actually, one more news and note here before we dive into actual news and notes. I forgot to tell you this before the podcast. I'll tell you right now. Okay. Had a buddy send me the MetaQuest thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he said, he sent it to me. That's how, you know, I was friend my life. I don't even know how expensive these things are, but I would imagine expensive. Came with the golf thing. Golf.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. He said, buy the golf game. And I said, okay, sounds good. Greatest thing I've ever done in my whole life. It was the best $30. I mean, it's definitely way more than $30, but for me, it was $30. Best $30 I've ever spent. Wild how crazy that thing is. Would highly recommend. And if I get bored of it, it's going to be the brotherhood of the traveling MetaQuest, and I'll send it down to the DMV.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I hope you get bored soon. I hope you get bored by the end of this week, so I have something to do while I'm snowed in.
That is very true. I don't know if it'd make it down there, but I could try. All right, let's start with some news and notes. I think we got one pretty big one, so I'm going to toss it your way. What do we got?
Yeah, everybody's been waiting for coaching changes for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and though we've been saying not much is going to change, we do have one swap for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They allowed DB coach Grady Brown to walk as his contract ended at the culmination of this season, and in return, they hired Gerald Alexander, former DB coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. He comes to Pittsburgh, taking Grady Brown's spot. And another piece of news that people are probably going to be upset about as I say it, but the Steelers expect to retain offensive lines coach Pat Meyer. So one coaching change on the defensive side of the ball and one non-change that a lot of people were waiting for.
Yeah, I said when this started, I said Grady Brown was a name that would have surprised me a little bit, but I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule Grady Brown as an option that leaves at the end of the season. Gerald Alexander, we talked about it the other day. Fantastic hire by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm a big fan of Gerald Alexander and what he's done in the NFL. He worked with, a number of guys throughout the year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He helped Minka become Minka during his time here. He kept Terrell Edmonds a relevant safety for a long time out here. He helped Cam Sutton develop into a guy that went and signed a $30 million contract with the Detroit Lions. I don't care where he is right now. It's about where he was when Gerald Alexander was working with him. You get a lot of young guys like Joey Porter and Corey Trice who are going to be back here. I think it's some youth who's been waiting for this opportunity and now gets it. And I am a big fan of that hire. I think Grady Brown's a phenomenal coach, but I do think that sometimes you just, things run their course and you gotta make a change. And Gerald Alexander is a good replacement for that change. On the other side of that, I don't know. I like Pat Meyer. I think Pat Meyer is a great guy. I think he has had success. Okay. Let's not ignore some of that success because not everything's gone very well for him. Broderick is a big L right now, but Dan Moore Jr. turned out to be a pretty okay win. You have guys like Zach Frazier who he just came out booming and hasn't stopped booming since. Mason McCormick is a 4th-round rookie who has turned into something very quickly. That's impressive. That shouldn't have been the case. We were talking in May what are the expectations for Mason McCormick? There are none. He's coming from an FCS school. He's got 2 things to jump before he's ready to play in the NFL. Well, he started most of the season and didn't look bad doing so. Spencer Anderson went from a 7th-round pick to a guy that you're talking about in a year might be competing for a starting job. I think that's notable. I don't think everything's perfect. I think there was room for upside with a new addition. I'm not going to act like there wasn't. I understand the argument to keep him through what I believe is the final year of his contract. And if it is, I get where they're going with this. I do. It's been a lot of turnover in that offensive line room and a lot of turnover in the coaching staff. I mean, they've gone through since Munchak. It's just one after another, after another, after another. None of them worked out. Pat Myers at least had some good to grab onto. I get where they're going with this. It is a one and done situation here. Okay. I'm going to say this 40 times during the offseason. People are going to get really upset and tired of it. They're probably going to hate me by the end of it. I don't view the Steelers as a Super Bowl team right now. They could change my mind, but right now, February 11th, I do not view the Pittsburgh Steelers as a Super Bowl team. And therefore, if you want to make coaching moves to say we need some continuity and maybe this works out, we're going to take a chance. This is the year to do so. I think it's better to take bigger chances, but I hear where they're going, and I think there's an argument to be made for keeping Pat Meyer when, most of us, and I say us, would probably argue that it's time to move on. So I hear where they're saying there. I think the Grady Brown move does not surprise me that much. Said that from the beginning. Gerald Alexander is a phenomenal coach, and Pat Meyer, people aren't going to be happy about it, but you could make the argument. The Steelers are making the argument to why they'll keep him. And we'll see if it works out. What were your thoughts on that stuff?
If it's true that he only has 1 year remaining on his deal, then it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you look at the first 2 years that Pat Meyer was in Pittsburgh, he didn't have a lot to deal with, right? He came in and Chuks Okorafor was the right tackle. He had Mason Cole as a center for some time. So it's not like he had a lot to work with when he came in. And in those first 2 years, the offensive line got better as the season went on. Specifically in year 2, you look at last season in 2023, and the offensive line was really good late in the season. The running game was really good late in the season. So he bought himself a little bit of grace. Match that with the fact that this year you dealt with some injuries to some key names. They never really got some continuity. I think that's what bought him that final year, because they're going to look at it and say, listen, next year, you're going to bank on it being a little bit healthier. You're going to have the young guys. We need you to make these improvements. We need Mason McCormick to be a no-doubt starting guard next season. We need Troy Fautanu to hit the ground running. That's on you, Pat. We need Broderick to be fixed. That's going to be the biggest thing. If Broderick Jones has a bad year at left tackle in year 3, that's going to be the death sentence for Pat Meyer next year. But I can see why he got a little bit of grace from the organization. 1, because this is an organization that drags their feet on a lot of these types of moves. And 2, because you can put a lot of these qualifiers in front of Pat Meyer's performance this past year. There were injuries. There wasn't continuity. They are young. So now that that's going to go away a little bit more next year with a little bit more experience and hopefully a cleaner bill of health, it's going to be up to Pat Meyer to earn his next deal next season. I think all of the previous 3 and all these excuses, if you, for lack of a better term, excuses that you can put behind Pat Meyer, they go away. That's what bought him next year. And now next year, he's going to be evaluated solely based on what happens in 2025.
100% agree. 100% agree. That's how it should be. That's how it will be. And you could look at Grady Brown as a prime example of that. You know, you had every excuse in the book as to why it wasn't going well. And again, I think Grady Brown's a good coach, but you had every excuse in the book as to why it wasn't going well. Patrick Peterson, injuries, Minka's going down, DeMonte KZ suspended, Joey Porter's a rookie. All right, cool. We're putting everything on 2025 or 2024. 2024 wasn't impressive. It was actually the complete opposite of impressive because you had Deshaun Elliott being a stud and everybody else was like, they don't really look that good. Not even Minka, not Joey. Dante Jackson started hot, got real bad by the end because of injuries. And they just said that, look at, dude, this was your tryout and you have to earn it. And you didn't earn it. And I agree with you. I think that's what 2025 looks like for Pat Myers. So we'll see what happens. I get a lot of people aren't upset about it, but at the end of the day, are upset about it. But at the end of the day, we don't get to make these decisions. You know, we just get to feel a certain way about them. Nobody was hoping that this happened. There's an argument to be made as to why it did happen. And I think you have to acknowledge that in the same sentence of saying, this is my opinion. And my opinion is it's a bad move. So I hear what they're saying. Let's talk mock drafts here for a minute here. Come on, Noah. What are you doing here? You talk for a living. This is what you do. I released my second Steelers mock draft of the offseason today, and my first round pick, it didn't change. It's stayed the same. And I will say that when I put it together, I had it set for Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. All of the stuff came out. The Super Bowl went by. You know, I'm watching the Eagles and everybody's asking the same questions. And I had yesterday to mull over it because it came out this morning. Everybody else puts theirs out on Monday. I'm a Tuesday draft guy. I've always been a Tuesday draft guy. It just feels like that's mock draft day. And because, you know, nothing goes better with tacos than mock drafts. That's, you know, in my household, that's what we say. And I thought about it, and everybody asked us yesterday, and everybody continued to ask me today, and I had people texting me and conversations with neighbors and whoever. But did you see what the Eagles did, man? The Steelers got to go get some defensive linemen. They got to go get some defensive linemen. So I had a full day to renegotiate myself and say, dude, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's not Emeka Egbuka. It's got to be a defensive end. Well, I ran everything I could. I looked at it every way I could, and I'll tell you this. It's still Emeka Egbuka. It still is, because at the end of the day, the Pittsburgh Steelers have options to go get defensive linemen. At the end of the day, the Steelers have a guy named Keanu Benton that they're going to put a lot of stock in. At the end of the day, they need some wide receivers. They're going to have a quarterback in Justin Fields, and you could say whatever you want, okay? This is my argument to everybody who's going to argue against me. And I know it's not you guys. We have great fans. Everybody who would say you got to go get a defensive lineman because of the Super Bowl. Who won Super Bowl MVP? Jalen Hurts. What does Jalen Hurts have? The best cast you could possibly ask for around him. I mean, completely. The Steelers have put together their offensive line. They add a running back in the second round with back-to-back Ohio State guys, adding Quinshon Judkins, who I am, again, was torn with, but we'll get to that in a second. They bring back Jaylen Warren in my eyes, possibly Najee Harris as well. They have Pat Freiermuth. They have Darnell Washington. They're going to try to get Justin Fields, which is going to be their Jalen Hurts. The nobody gave this guy a shot. We're going to try to give him a shot guy. He's 2 years older. I believe Jalen Hurts was 24 when he came in the league. Justin Fields is about to turn 26. That's not, you know, that's pretty close. I get it. You got some experience, but it's pretty close in age there to turn this thing around. Now it's about finding wide receivers, and the Steelers aren't going to ignore it. You could say whatever you want in George Pickens. T. Higgins is expected to go back to the Bengals. It's what everybody's saying. Okay, if that's the situation and you're going to go get a Deebo, you're going to go get a Cooper Kupp, you're going to draft a wide receiver, and you're going to draft one first overall. And it doesn't matter what they should do. It's about what they're going to do. And what I believe they're going to do is say, we need wide receivers. There's no more playing around here. That was our biggest downfall last year, because if you have wide receivers, the games where the Bengals score, I believe it was 19 points in week 18, you win that game, because you're able to do something on offense. If you have wide receivers maybe you score some touchdowns in the playoffs and things aren't so crazy. Or maybe you can compete with the Eagles at all because your offense could do anything. Because let's be very honest, the Steelers defense didn't play terrible the whole time in Philadelphia. They played really well to start that game, actually, and then things got real bad real fast. I think wide receivers, their move in the first round still. I have Emeka Ibuka. Then I go Quinshon Judkins at number 2. Caleb Johnson was sitting right there in my eyes. It was Caleb Johnson and Quinshon Judkins. And I just said, dude, you want to know? All I could see, I could just picture Mike Tomlin sitting there at the podium and just going, we like winners. You know, they know how to win. Ohio State Buckeyes, that was a team that knew how to win. And I could just envision him saying it. And I said, Judkins is the move. I do have him getting interesting as we get a little bit deeper into here. They back-to-back double dip at defensive end here with Darius Alexander out of Toledo and Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. My big things there, my big thoughts on that one. I apologize that I got all crazy there. My big thoughts on that one. Ty Robinson is 6'6", 6'7", and you want to know who he's replacing? 6'7", 6'8" Isaiah Loudermilk out of Nebraska. Out of Wisconsin. Makes a lot of sense. And at the other one of those, the Steelers were very much so into Darius Alexander. Very much so into him at the Senior Bowl. I heard a lot about how the Steelers had interest in him. I would imagine that's a name to keep an eye on. I look at Robinson as a guy that comes in, both of them, Robinson and Alexander, as names that come in here and have starter upside, like high-end starter upside in the 3rd and 4th round that the Steelers could bring in and develop. It's not the perfect mix, but I expect them to go out into free agency and make a splash, or go into the trade market and make a splash, especially if you're not going to go sign a T. Higgins and spend a boatload of money on a wide receiver. That's how I look at it. Judkins is number 2, Ibuka is number 1, and then I got him double dipping at defensive end. You checked it out this morning. Everybody else could check it out at si.com/NFL/Steelers. What were your thoughts? Am I wrong?
The last couple of years, they've gone with the big boys in the first round, and they've gone with big boys in the second round, and they've kind of let their kind of offensive skill positions fall by the wayside. We thought they were going to address it with the Brandon Ayuk trade, and they never did. It's due time that they address their skill positions, especially if they're uncertain about George Pickens. And again, we always go back to that, but there is an uncertainty there. There's an uncertainty in the running back room with Najee Harris right now. But if you get the opportunity to bring in Emeka Ibuka, who's an elite route runner, who's an elite separator, who comes in and immediately gives you that opportunity to have a Brian Thomas-esque year one, where he goes off and he becomes a major piece of your offense. And then you go in and you bring a really good 1B to Jaylen Warren's 1A. And I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, he can't carry the rock. He can't carry that many snaps. That's why you bring somebody in the second round. So you can have it at a true 50-50, not a, well, Najee Harris is going to run 70% of the time through the first 8 weeks. And then whenever he gets worn down, then Jaylen Warren's get an opportunity to know. It's going to be a true 50-50 throughout the year to keep both of these guys fresh. And I like Judkins being that type of option. I've talked about these guys a lot. So I love the fact that you have them and you're continuing to have them. Little consistency here to have these guys in the conversation in the first couple rounds. And then going defensive line is huge. I mean, you mentioned it. The Steelers need to restructure their defensive front. They have two major pillars in Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton. Let's get them some support. Isaiah Loudermilk's not support. DeMarvin Leal is not support. Montravius Adams is fine, but it's not support, and he struggles to stay on the field. Let's get him that support, and I like the fact that you're getting it in the places you're getting. And I know we talked a little bit, I believe it was yesterday, about Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. I looked into him a little bit more. Dude's a monster. So bring those guys in, and you can also address that in free agency as well. If you build that offensive line, if you build that front four, that's what's going to help you, because the Steelers, they're cocky. They are. They like to say, we're going to run our defensive line 4-man rush, and that's all we're going to do. If you're going to do that, you need to have a deeper room than you have right now. Addressing that and double dipping in back-to-back rounds, that allows you to get the talent necessary to be able to be as cocky as the Steelers are on defense.
Yeah, look at it. I agree. I think if there's a position, and I have the Steelers getting Jimmy Horn late, so they're double dipping at wide receiver too. But that was more so of I've heard two names that the Steelers love in this draft class above any other, and Jimmy Horn was one of them. So how do you not put him in the draft? But I agree. I think that if the Steelers are going to double dip anywhere, it's the big guys on the defensive end or the defensive tackle, defensive end line. And if they're going to go anywhere in free agency right now, wide receiver is a big one. But with these trades emerging, it's just hard for me to sit here and say that they're gonna avoid Cooper Kupp and Deebo and wait to take a chance on T. Higgins when expectations are right now that T. Higgins is staying in Cincinnati, and you got to ride that wave. If the wave says he's only got a 50% chance of hitting the market, that's not good enough. You can't take those chances. There was a 50% chance Brandon Ayuk ended up in Pittsburgh last year. Look at how that ended up. You can't do that. You got to go with your positions. Wide receiver's a risky one, but I think Ibuka's worth it. I do. And Ohio State wide receivers work out in the NFL more times than not. So you got to stick with what's good and what you know. And the Steelers are going to love them once they go out to good old where's Ohio State? Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, Brian Hartline is doing some special things with wide receivers out there. He's the OC now, though, so we'll see how that adjusts and changes now.
That is very true, but he is a stud. And Brian Hartline was also awesome on the Dolphins. So Let's not act like he was in the mix of the West. He was the underappreciated Danny Amendola. That's what I would say about him. No?
Yeah, no, you're right. But to be the underappreciated Danny Amendola, who was the underappreciated Julian Edelman.
Yeah. Who was the underappreciated Wes Welker. This is the
6 degrees of separation from the New England Patriots. Yes.
Yep. Yes. Cooper Kupp came in and said, look it, guys, I'm over here. I'm walking away from this line. Yeah. And he went in his own. So shout out. I'll toss a mock draft at you that surprised me a little bit, but it's come out twice now. We are here 2 times. And I don't, at this point, you got to just listen to it, acknowledge it, say it's real. This isn't a fluke. This isn't somebody off the wall throwing spitballs out there to try to get clicks. This is real thought process that people are actually having in our industry. Both the 33rd team and ESPN. Who doesn't? ESPN just doesn't put out mock drafts. They have people, this time it was Field Yates, who put out mock drafts who, you have to at least acknowledge. Whether they're right or not, you have to acknowledge them. Both of them have the Pittsburgh Steelers drafting a quarterback in the first round. And both of them have that quarterback being the quote-unquote fast rising Ole Miss stud that we have been asked about many times on this show, Jackson Dart at 21. Not Jalen Milroe, not Will Howard. I saw Colin Cowherd toss Riley Leonard's name out there as Justin Fields is back up in the 3rd round the other day. And I thought, what are you do you even know who Riley Leonard is there, Colin Cowherd? Come on. What are we doing here? Jackson Dart at 21. The conversation starts with, how did you get there? How did you get from Justin Fields to Jackson Dart? What comes with Jackson Dart, which is a lot of uncertainty, but also the fact that you completely missed on so many options. You missed on Justin Fields. You probably didn't even try for Sam Darnold. Russell Wilson said, screw you, I'm going to the Giants. Aaron Rodgers retired. Kirk Cousins is the backup in Atlanta, or even worse, he's in Cleveland or something. And Jameis Winston getting on up down to New Orleans or some crazy place like that. And I don't know where Derek Carr ended up, but it's not Pittsburgh. Somehow you missed all of it. You said, screw it. We're going with Jackson Dart. And look there is one positive to this situation, and that is at 21, Jackson Dart is a better prospect than Kenny Pickett was at 20. But in the same draft, Jackson Dart would have been the first quarterback drafted at 20, and nobody would have went ahead of him. So it might be a boost from the last time the Steelers have done this, but it is equally as big of a mistake, I would say. And man, I look at Jackson Dart in the 2nd round. You want to take a chance on him? You really don't feel good, or even worse, you end up with Aaron Rodgers, who, shout out our boys at DraftKings, running favorite right now to land the 41-year-old free agent. I don't know how that happened, but it remains the biggest headline everywhere is Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. Everybody believes it. I don't. If that's your case, if that's where you end up, Aaron Rodgers is your guy, you need a quarterback, and you're going to get one in the second round, cool. Jackson Dart's awesome. First round, 21st overall. Okay, sounds good. Who's he throwing the football to? And what happens if he doesn't work out? And who's starting as a rookie? Because unless your expectation is we're not making a Super Bowl this year, or even worse, we're not making the playoffs, it's not Jackson Dart in 2025. That's not the guy that you're putting on the field in week one. And are you going to go sign Mitch Trubisky? Is that the answer again? You're going to go sign a Mason Rudolph? Is that the answer again? There are just so many questions to drafting Jackson Dart at 21 when the clear answer is just pay Justin Fields. I mean, I want your reaction to this, but I also want you to answer this question. Would you rather draft Jackson Dart 21 and these are your only two options, or would you rather overpay for Justin Fields?
I would rather overpay for Justin Fields and utilize that first round pick on somebody to help Justin Fields, somebody to support Justin Fields, because if you utilize Jackson Dart in the first round, you're still not filling a hole. If you sign Justin Fields and utilize that first round pick on Emeka Egbuka, or at the very least, anything other than quarterback, you're adding two picks. You're adding two pieces to your team that you need, because I think Justin Fields is right now miles better than Jackson Dart, especially with a first round valuation. I mean, I was as shocked as humanly possible to see this. And I will say, though, you mentioned there was one positive, that Jackson Dart at 21 is a better pick than Kenny Pickett at 20 back a couple years ago. I'll give you another one. Jackson Dart at 21 is better than Jalen Milroe at 21. So there's another positive to this entire thing. But no, if given the option between drafting Jackson Dart or retaining Justin Fields, I'm retaining Justin Fields. You know what you have in him, and you can get him some help with that 21st overall selection.
Easy. I'd overpay Justin Fields any day before I went and added good old Jackson Dart. And I like Jackson Dart. I think Jackson Dart's exciting. I also think Kenny Pickett was exciting. And I think that, Malik Willis was exciting, and Matt Corral was exciting, and Sam Howell was the next great quarterback who was going to be a top 5 pick. And Kevin Colbert showed up at the Pitt, North Carolina game the day before, or the year before, because that was going to be their guy if they could get a pick high enough for him. It doesn't work out. That's just what happens. These guys get worse and worse and worse, and then eventually the hype fades and it becomes nothing. And by the end of a college career if this guy's going to be good or not. That's why Spencer Rattler was where Spencer Rattler was, because when Spencer Rattler started at Oklahoma, he was the first overall pick in the draft. This guy was going to be unbelievable. Where is he today? That's what happens. You have a good sense. Jackson Dart ain't it. But man, dude, when it happened twice, it got me. I was like, all right, 33rd team. Then I was like, ESPN too, huh? This train's building, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop. Although there's 2 Jackson Darts, 0 Jalen Milroes to this point, which, you could look at as a positive. You could look at as no Gray Zables. So they're not listening to this show, obviously. No Gray Zables.
Not once. No. All
right. Let's finish off our agenda here with a quick conversation about good old Deebo Samuel. If I froze there, I apologize. ESPN's Nick Wagner. Shout out how he spells his last name. Have you seen how he spells his last name? Waggoner. I'm always a fan of like a random letter just tossed into a name. Waggoner. That's awesome. That's just a great way to spell your last name. It's like Isaiah with 2 H's or Keanu with 2 E's. Gets me every time. But I'm like, fantastic, just random way to make this unique. I love it. He believes that Deebo Samuel is looking at a day 3 pick. Quote, because Samuel is coming off a down year and is entering the final year of his contract with other top receivers set to be available in free agency or trade, a day 3 draft pick and perhaps another late round pick would probably satisfy the 49ers. Wow, I got to check out the internet, guys. I apologize here for every time I go off. You look at Deebo Samuel, you say you're paying him $15 million this year, and then he's a free agent afterwards. To give up a day 3 pick probably means, a high-end 4th, but I would imagine it's a 5th-round pick. I don't think you're going much higher than that. I'm more comfortable with that situation. I again think that if Cooper Kupp goes for the same price, you go for Cooper Kupp over you would Deebo Samuel, and I just think that that's an easy call. It's not a difficult call at all. Cooper gives you what you need. That's my argument right now for the Steelers. They don't need a bunch of Cordero Pattersons. They don't need a bunch of Calvin Austins. They don't need gadget guys. They don't need these dudes that can make a bunch of plays. Get your quarterback, whoever it's going to be, a bunch of wide receivers. Very good, reliable wide receivers. Ones that will catch the football, ones that will get open. That's what you're looking for. I don't care if he lines up in the backfield. That's never going to happen in Pittsburgh. Never once. That being said, you look at a good 4th, maybe a 5th-round pick for Deebo Samuel, and what is your thoughts?
The acquisition cost was never an issue for me because we always expected it was going to be a 4th or a 5th. I mean, if it was a 3rd, it would have been a little bit surprising. So acquisition cost has never been an issue for me. The issue for me is Deebo Samuel's coming over on the last year of a contract. He's going to want an extension. That's not a player that you want to extend. I know that he's played 15 games this past season. He was surprisingly one of the healthier members of the San Francisco 49ers offense, but he still wasn't healthy. Every time he went into a game, he was going in with an injury designation, whether it was the shoulder, whether it was his lower body. This is a guy that played a bruising style of football for the majority of his early career in the NFL. That wears on a player. He just doesn't have it at that level. Nobody expects him to have it at that level. There's a reason that whenever the big conversation was being had after their first run of the Super Bowl, it was, well, he should be paid as a wide receiver plus the payment that he's getting as a running back because he's taking all of those hits. Well, a couple years later, and those hits have accrued, and that has become an issue for Deebo Samuel. So I don't care if it's a mid-round pick. I expected it to be a day 3 pick. I didn't expect it to be anything higher. Acquisition cost is not the issue to me for Deebo Samuel. It's what you're getting and what he's going to want. You're getting a guy that's on a downswing, and he's going to want a decent-sized extension before he enters this season. I just don't think that that's a situation that you want to kind of willingly put yourself into. I think there's other options that you can go out for. Get somebody who's on a better deal, in a better situation, and has a little bit more left in the tank. Yeah. There's other options. I don't need to go into them, but that's just what I think on Deebo.
Look, I agree. There's just there's no part of me right now or a year ago that was into the Deebo Samuel trade, and nothing's going to change. That just doesn't make sense to me as the Steelers. It doesn't make sense to me for most teams. Deebo is not a guy that I'm giving much up for. He's a guy that he was great in San Francisco and he's awesome, but he's 30 years old and he's beat up. That's just what it is. Like you if you had kick return value, if you had something there, you could go out and get him. But for a guy that you're going to bank on, like the Steelers have their bottom of the depth chart guys. They have a guy in Calvin Austin that I think could be way better with a better quarterback and a better offense. They have a guy in Roman Wilson that we have no idea what's going to happen, but he's drafted in the 3rd round. They're not going to just ignore this guy forever. They're going to try to give him a shot. They have those guys. You don't need that's your Deebo Samuel. That's where he'd be on the depth chart is 3rd or 4th. You already have your 3rd and 4th. You need your 1 and 2 figured out. You need your 1 and 2 and 2B figured out. That's what you need. Deebo he just doesn't fit the mold for me. Cooper Kupp's a 2. You draft Cooper Kupp, he's a 2. Maybe he's a 2B, but he's a 2. Deebo's a 3 at best. That's what he is. And I just don't think you're getting your money's worth for a guy like that. I just don't think he's worth it for the Steelers. I honestly would be a little disappointed if it turns out to be the truth there. And I could be totally wrong, but I don't know. An offense that underperforms, that doesn't have much burst to begin with. It's almost as if, and this is a tear. I don't want to take a jab at somebody's, but I'm not. But I'm not going to try to. But this is like the biggest thing with Najee Harris is he's reliable. He'll get you 1,000 yards. He's going to get you the tough yards. That's what he's going to do. But there's no oomph. There's no oomph with Najee Harris. There's a punch. There's no oomph. And it's like getting a car. You know what I mean? You put your foot to the gas and it still goes real slow and you're going, all right, nothing. That's how I look at Deebo. Like, Deebo punch you. He'll get you. He'll get you those 4 yards. But, like, the Steelers offense has no oomph. They need some oomph. And that's not Deebo Samuel. I don't think I'd be into it. We'll see what happens. It's early. It's early. I got about 100 phone calls yesterday of people saying, dude, do you know Bob Pompiani mentioned your name on the fan? I was like, no, but thanks, Bob. Shout out Bob. Shout out, Bob. All right. We're going to finish off the show the same way we do every day. That's everything on our agenda. We're going to start answering all of your questions, so make sure that you toss them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. I want to give a shout out to our new member, 2 new members, I believe, Heath Miles and Dale Toole. Appreciate you guys. Remember that tomorrow morning I will be recording the call-in show. What you have to do there is become a member. If you are a member, you call the number that is on our membership community page. You leave the voicemail. You ask your question or you make your statement. I will air all of it and respond to everything on the show tomorrow. I think right now we have like 3, maybe 4 voicemails. We need more than that. So get them in. We appreciate you. We're trying to make the show a banger. And I honestly am very much so. I haven't listened to any of them. I want to see what happens if I listen and respond immediately. You know, if I got to go back and figure it out later, I will. But I am very interested to see what happens when I just go straight into this. So I appreciate you guys. I also have been started to make my calls. What's today? Tuesday. So yesterday, on those of you who email me and give me your number and ask to call and answer your questions. So I appreciate you guys making my way through that list. I will begin. I've actually been calling more than one person a day. So I'm going to try to get through that list as fast as I can. So if you haven't received one, expect to in the next couple of days. Appreciate you guys. With that said, we're diving into your questions. If you got them, drop them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. Nick, what do we got?
Yeah, let's start it off with Cody Silva, who says, yesterday, I asked how close we are to fixing our run defense. Today, I'd like to know how close we are to fixing our run game. Are we just a running back and Troy Fautanu away?
It might be. It might be. That could be a real thing. I mean, I think the first thing is to develop what is fixing the run game, because the Steelers put almost unrealistic expectations on themselves. They say we're going to be a running football team. That is how we're going to do this. We're going to win through the ground. But then they run and operate their offense as if they're looking for 3-yard gains and not 15-yard gains. And that's awesome until you find yourself in 3rd and 6 and can't do anything about it. So I think it's a little bit of both. You need a running back. Hopefully Troy Fautanu is an absolute stud. And at the same time, if you're going to operate as a running offense, if you're going to say we are going to win this football game by running the football, then you have to do so in a way that generates way more than 4 yards a run, 2 yards a run. Like, you need bursts of 30. You need bursts of 65. You need that to happen every once in a while. So maybe that's a little bit of everything. I think it is a little bit of everything. I think that's how you go about fixing it, is you find, and I think Jaylen Warren's got that oomph in him. I think a rookie also does. I don't know if Najee does. I think Najee's a very good running back. I don't know if his fit is Pittsburgh. I think that's how you go about it, and you hope Troy is healthy in the process.
So I will say this. The Eagles proved that you can win with a run-first offense, but they didn't prove that you can win with 3 yards in a cloud of dust, because they got 3 yards before Saquon even got touched. So running offense and the Steelers running offense are 2 different things right now.
Yes.
You need to evolve that running game, and I think that's exactly what you were alluding to there, Noah. Let's go over to Madeline, who has a couple of questions here. First, what do you think of Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, I believe, and Ty Felton out of Maryland as wide receiver options if we don't take a wide receiver in round 1? I think they're both pretty good.
Yeah, Trey Harris I am very aware of. Tay Felton I'm less aware of. But Trey Harris I think I'd be about. He's a big-bodied guy. I think he's got some decent speed, good-sized hands. I've been a Trey Harris fan. Interested to see where he falls. Like, right now, he's a 2nd-round pick. Does he remain a 2nd-round pick? Is he A.D. Mitchell, where he slides a little bit deeper into the 2nd round? Where do we go there? To be honest with you, though, and I'm lacking here, so I apologize. I'm not totally familiar with Tay Felton. I know who he is. I know his work. but I don't know if I know enough about him to understand where he's going to end up in the draft. If I had to guess, he'd be a third or later because I don't know that much, or like really what a stat line looks like. Because quite honest with you, I don't watch much Maryland football. I should, but I don't.
All right, let's go to Madeline's second question here. Why are we the landing spot for Aaron Rodgers? Have
Yes.
we learned nothing after this past year?
I agree. I agree. I think it's just DraftKings trying to win some money, man. I think that's what it is. Like I really do. Like I saw it this morning. Or I got it sent to me last night. I got it. Actually, shout out to our boy Bill Huber. He emailed me the DraftKings link and said, just in case you didn't see this, and he covers the Packers for on SI. So he said, just in case you didn't see this, and I clicked on it and it just said Aaron Rodgers, Pittsburgh Steelers, #1. And I said, okay, no. But okay, sounds good. I don't think there's a big chance Aaron Rodgers comes to Pittsburgh. I do think that if Aaron Rodgers called Mike Tomlin or Aaron Rodgers' agent called Mike Tomlin would think about it. We know Mike Tomlin. We know how he thinks. We know the excitement level. We know that him saying Aaron Rodgers one time to himself, saying Aaron Rodgers coming to Super Bowl is all it would take for him to be engaged in that thought. So likely, no. Possible, can't say I can rule that out. Can't say I can rule it out.
All right, let's go to Macaroni Salad, who says, Noah and Nick in the corner, give me a reason to think this year will be better than the last 5. What's going to be different? So far, it doesn't look like anything is changing.
Yeah, right now there is no optimism that right now one or this year will be better than the last 5. To be honest, I'm going to give it to you straight. I don't think the Steelers are a Super Bowl team where we sit right now. They have potential to be a Super Bowl team, obviously. Everybody does. You could make a lot of changes. The Washington Commanders, prime example of how quickly you could turn around a season. And look at Justin Fields might not be a stud, but where we stand right now, but he gets out there and proves like, hey, I'm the guy for the job. I am a superstar. That's all it would take. That's all it would take to make the Pittsburgh Steelers better than where they've been in the last 5 years is to have that young quarterback. But outside of that, what will improve them is wide receivers, a defensive line, and hopefully a running game because their running game has been good, but they've missed it. When Najee Harris was a stud, like a rookie, this dude looks like he could be an absolute animal stud. Their offensive line was so bad that, I mean, we could go back through it, but it was Dan Moore, Trey Turner, Kendrick Green, Kevin Dotson, Chuksa Okorafor. Should have been Zach Banner. That's where the offensive line was when Najee was like coming in red hot, ready to do this thing. Now they have the offensive line, hopefully. They got to go get the running back. So I would say those 3 things fix a lot of stuff. I don't have any defined answer to tell you this is going to be better than the last 5 years because I don't think it's going to be.
It's early, though. Give it some time.
It is. It is early. It's early in the offseason. Where we stand right now, that's where we stand.
All right, let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, if you get one question to ask Mike Tomlin and he has to respond with a real answer, no dodging, what would it be and why?
Man, I'd have so many. I would have so many. I think I'd just ask straight up. I would want a real honest answer, and I would ask straight up, how much do you really control? How much power do you actually give away to your other coaches or to your quarterback or to anybody else? You know, like what is your chunk of the pie and what do you allow others to do? That would be my question, because I think the answer would be incredibly alarming to be honest.
Yeah, let's go to Danny, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, appreciate you guys. Noah, have you heard anything about interest in Reed, the cornerback from the Jets?
No, I have not heard anything about DJ Reed. Just to be honest, like I haven't heard anything at all. Doesn't mean that they don't have interest. Just means that right now they might be focused on other things, and that stuff isn't making its way towards the top of the conversation. I would imagine that they do look into some veteran corner options, and DJ Reed's name will come up. I do expect that. I don't know if that level of interest is high or not, but I do imagine him, Ward out of San Francisco, Dante Jackson would be an easy one. Any of those names, at the top of the cornerback market will be on the Steelers' radar, and they will have conversations about them, certainly.
All right, let's go down to American Steel, who says, do you see any chance of the Steelers picking up Cam Scadaboo out of ASU late as our number 3? Also, you guys gave my daughter a shout out for Navy boot camp. She wanted to update Yins. She is in submarine school now.
That is awesome. Yeah, I saw your comment the other day. I wrote back, actually. I was pretty pumped about it. That's awesome. Please tell her that she's got the whole AST community behind her. We are rooting for her. That is super sick. As of Cam Scadabo, maybe it depends on where he falls. I think that's the biggest thing here is if he's a 4th round pick, somebody's taking a flyer on him. No, if he's a 7th round pick and the Steelers saying, screw it, dude, let's go get that guy. He sounds exciting. I think that's a possibility. They have 3 7th round picks. So anything and everything is on the table. And I would imagine that another running back is as well. I don't expect that to be their first running back they pick, but I would say he is an option depending on where he falls.
All right, let's go over to Colton, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, quick question. What is your go-to food for an event, and what is the go-to karaoke song in the club on a Friday night in downtown? We're really getting into the off-season questions now.
Yeah, for real. Go-to food is pizza or pasta. I'm a big Italian guy, obviously. But even if I'm going to be more honest with you, if you put a charcuterie board in front of me, that's all I really need. You give me some meats and some cheese, I'm good to go. And when it comes to karaoke, I don't karaoke. I go to karaoke with people, but I stage fright. I don't be doing it. My karaoke songs would be, I don't know. I used to think it would be The Anthem by Good Charlotte because I think I could rock it, but I don't know. I also, if you get a couple of beers in me, I could rap the whole thing of Rap God in the same amount of time that he does. And I'd put that on my mom. So, that would be up there. I'd have to be feeling pretty confident at that point in the night.
Yeah, I haven't done much karaoke in my day, but I feel like if you got enough in me, I'd go up there and blast some Creed. I think I'd be able to get some Creed with a couple of pops in me.
Yeah. Creed is obviously the go-to. My brother's bachelor party is this spring, and he asked for one thing. He did not ask for golf. He asked for karaoke. And I said, dude, I will karaoke for you one time. One time in my life, I will karaoke, and it will be in the middle of nowhere. So that will make it okay.
All right, let's go down to Matt Stewart, who says, are you guys hyped for the combine and possibly to find some value, or are you just set on who you like going into this draft season?
No, I am hyped for the combine. I think that's when we really get to understand these players. I don't think we really know anything about them right now. So the way I look at it is the combine is the first time, the Super Bowl is the first time that you start to really understand where the Steelers are, what direction they want to go in. You can say whatever you want about the Senior Bowl. You get some nuggets out of there, but it's really 1 or 2. It's not a ton. The Super Bowl, you get a bunch of nuggets. The combine is that's when it starts. By the time you're at the combine, you know a lot. You get so much information. You understand who these guys really like and who they don't, and that's who you target in on. I could have guys all day. I could be a giant fan of Emeka Egbuka. I could be a giant fan of Quinshon Judkins. But if I get down there and people are telling me the Steelers don't like either of these guys, I don't care. I no longer care about them. They mean nothing to me. It's who do the Steelers like. That's who we pay attention to. I think you learn all that down at the combine.
All right, let's go to Grayson, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, let's play start, bench, cut. Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, and Fields. Rodgers and Stafford are the only guys I can see us getting outside of Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, start Justin Fields. No, start Matthew Stafford, bench Justin Fields, cut Aaron Rodgers. I think that's easy for me, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking too. So I think we're in agreement on that one. Let's go back to Matt Stewart, who says, are there any players you were excited to see at the combine, or again, are you set on who you like in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, there are some guys. Cam Scadaboo is one of them because I am excited to see what he can do. Egbuka is definitely one of them. Ben Morrison, if he does participate, is a big one for me. I think he'd be really good. Also, Chevelle out of ECU is a name to watch, I think, at the combine. If he participates, I don't know if he's going to with the knee. I want to see the quarterbacks. I got to see Jackson Dart now if people are going to talk about him. But names like Caleb Johnson, who's a heavier running back, is he going to be speedy enough? Is he going to be able to have that burst? Like, what's his 40 time? And then all of the defensive linemen, because those are the guys that take off. At the combine, I think the combine's a bunch of nonsense most of the time. But you see some speed and some burst from these guys on the defensive line sometimes that Kalijah Cansey's a great example of that. He was a dude who was like, yeah, like, maybe a first rounder, went to the combine. You said, nope, he's a first round pick. Like, that's what he is. And I think that you learn a lot of those guys in the first round. Jordan Davis is another one. Like, where is he going in the first round? And then it was like, oh, no, very high, very high.
All right, let's jump over to Real Ish, who says, I'm hearing Siobhan Revel may fall to the second round. Would you support the Steelers grabbing him in the second round despite the injury history?
The second round, yeah, I would be okay with the second round. I think the end of the first, I'm too iffy on. If he does go to the second and he falls all the way to the 52nd or 53rd pick, whatever it is, I'm all about that. I think his talent and his upside is potentially the third corner in the draft, but I don't think I'd take a risk on him because of the ACL. In the second round, that's much less risky. Much less risky. I'd be all about that.
All right, let's go down to the irresistible fan who just wants to give a kind of a let us know here. Said tried calling the number, but says it's not receiving calls. Have we had this issue?
I have not had that issue. Actually, I have some phone calls, so I'll test it out tonight and shoot us an email, and I'll email you back and let you know. Make sure that it's working.
All right, let's go to Luke Cage, who says, if we trade GP, what would you rather have? Another player, aka a wide receiver, or straight up draft capital?
Oh, straight up draft capital. Straight up draft capital. The player's cool if it's the right player. But chances are it's not going to be. Like, I'm not taking Deebo and a fourth. That's not worth it. I'm not taking Kupp and a fourth. That's not worth it. I'd go second round pick, easy. I'd go a late first round pick, easy. It depends on what that player is. If somebody wants to hand the Steelers some great defensive lineman and a third round pick for George Pickens, great. But I think the easier route is draft capital, and I think you could get more of it.
All right, let's go back to the irresistible fan who says, what's going on with Roman Wilson? Haven't heard anything about him in a while. Have the Steelers given up on him, and was he a bust?
No, definitely not a bust. Got injured his rookie year. So because of that, you can't put a label on a guy in his rookie year. Look at Calvin Austin. Didn't play at all his rookie year. Wasn't a bust. Clearly wasn't a bust. That's what Roman is. He's a guy that just got too banged up. By the time he was healthy, it was too late in the season. They weren't going to give him a shot. You got to learn the defense or the offense, excuse me. And I think that's just what it came down to was he didn't have the health early enough in the season to jump on a moving train. So now you got to figure it out in year two. But the Steelers are going to give him an opportunity in year two, much more than they were going to give him an opportunity in year one, because now it's about you have to get on the train. You have to be able to figure this out. And this is the year to do so.
All right, let's go down to Ricky Huggins, who says, if Justin doesn't work out, who would you like to see us pick up next year? Not sure where Iamaliava and Aller will fall.
Oof. I'm a big Aller guy, but I'm curious to see what he does this year. I think that's big in deciding where he falls. Repeat that other name for me out of Tennessee.
Nico Iamaliava.
Thank you. We're going to call him Nico because I'm terrible with last names, but he's a stud. Okay. And he is, I am more curious about him because I think right now he is middle first round in a draft class that is iffy. And this is a year where he's Cam Ward in a better draft class or falls right out of the first round. Like he is either top 10 pick or second, third round, somewhere in that boat. But I think his upside's huge. I love what I see out of this kid. I think he's super talented. Man, would I have a hard time pronouncing that last name if he was the Steelers quarterback, but I'd figure it out. Okay. I'd figure it out. Drew Aller. I'm a big Drew Aller guy. If Justin doesn't work out, I think you have to go the NFL draft next year. You have to. You can't wait around anymore. You have to take somebody. You have to make a trade up to get somebody. It just that's your only option. If he doesn't work out this year, you have to go get somebody that you could take a pretty big shot on and have some certainty for it.
All right, let's go over to Chris, who says, Noah, what are your top 3 running backs that the Steelers could draft in this year's draft?
Oh, Ashton Genty, easy. Quinshon Junkins, number 2, and number 1 is Caleb, or number 3 is Caleb Johnson. Those are my top 3. I think all 3 of them are ridiculous. I think all 3 of them have ridiculous upside. And I think they fit the Steelers offense very well. So those would be my 3. They're not like my thing was like when Najee came out, Najee was a Steelers running back. Everybody kept saying he's a Steelers running back. Okay, great. Steelers running back today versus Steelers running back 4 years ago was different. Steelers running back today needs some burst, needs some speed, needs some power. And that's what I think all 3 of these guys have. So I'd go those 3 in that order. That would be my top 3.
All right, Chris has another one here. Says, Noah, the Patriots made many savvy trades down in the draft to keep their dynasty going. I feel strongly that the Steelers should do that this year.
Yes and no. Depends on who's there. It's a play it by ear situation. That's how I view this. But yeah, I agree. I am in a spot where right now my mindset is the 21st pick in the draft is a dangerous place to be. It's not a draft where last year was like there's so many options at 20. You're feeling good across the board. 21 this year, you're going, it could be a couple of good options or it could be nobody. And if it's nobody, just trade back and make that move. The Patriots also had Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I think that plays a pretty significant role into the dynasty. But I get draft, and to be honest, like Bill Belichick made some really good drafts. By the end of it, he made some really bad ones. I think there's a back and forth there. But I do think that if the Steelers find themselves where it's like Matthew Golden is their best option, go backwards. Go back a couple of picks and see if you could pick something up and get a guy that holds the same value. I think that's there. The Steelers typically have their like set of 5 guys within picks that they feel comfortable with. But I agree with you. I think that is a good option.
Yeah, and the other way would be if there's a lot of people available that are all in the same bucket. Like if it's Ibuka and Golden and Morrison and those types of guys, trade back 3 or 4 spots because somebody really wants Emeka Ibuka and get another pick later in the draft. That would make sense. But I don't think that as a overarching idea fits this scenario because the Patriots, as you mentioned, Chris, had a dynasty. The Steelers haven't had a playoff win in 8 years.
Yeah. You're missing the key parts to building the dynasty. But I hear what you're saying. I think the theory is good.
All right, let's go to Danny, who says, is there any merit in all these reports about the Steelers not being able to land Fields, or is it just noise at this point of the offseason?
I think it's both. It's not necessarily like the Steelers aren't going to be able to land Justin Fields. It's more so you don't know. You just don't. Like I know the Steelers are interested in Justin Fields. I know the Steelers want Justin Fields to be their starting quarterback in 2025. I know all of that to be truth. I have no idea where Justin Fields stands. I have no idea if Justin Fields wants to come back to the Steelers or if he wants to be their starting quarterback. I have no idea. I think that draws a lot of tension and anxiety, but Justin's a quiet guy, man. If Jalen Hurts was negotiating right now, nobody'd hear a damn thing from him. He'd just be real quiet. And that's kind of what I get out of Justin. Same demeanor a little bit. I wouldn't put too much stock into it. We'll know. If free agency comes around and the Steelers haven't gotten a deal done, you could probably bet that things went south or Justin told him I'm good, but I would also imagine by then we have some word on that and we know what's going on. So I right now wouldn't put too much stock into it. I would just say it's too quiet. And because of that, there's going to be noise because nobody likes when it's quiet.
All right. We got a couple from Blitzburg checking in from England. First says, what's the earliest that you would draft a running back if you were the Steelers?
If Ashton Genty was there in the first round, I go first round. Outside of him, I would go second round. That would be the earliest I'd draft one. And I think the second round's a good place to draft a running back. I think you get your best value for them. I think it evens out in the risk reward situation. I think second round is where I would go for a running back.
All right, let's go to Blitzburg's second question here. Who would you take in the first round, Harmon or Nolan?
Oof. I think Nolan. I think Nolan's a stud, dude. I do. I think there are a couple of guys in the first round that are really, really good. Nolan, I think, is one of them. I would be shocked if Nolan is there at 21. I think he's going to climb so fast that he's going to be a top maybe 15 pick by the end of this. I do. But for right now, I would go Nolan.
All right, let's go to Pittsburgh Heather, who says, who is your number 1 and number 2 options for free agent running backs?
Oh, Aaron Jones is number 1. I would Jaylen Warren is number 2. He might be number 1. I would say Rico Dowdle's on that list. I think he's a good option, a good number 3. It's very dry, to be honest with you. I would go Aaron Jones. I think I'd go Rico Dowdle as number 2.
All right, and let's finish it off with Wesley Reed, who says, over the rest of Tomlin's contract, if the Steelers miss the playoffs or have first-round exits, do Rooney and Khan let him go after this contract ends, or will they extend him again?
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be very honest with you, okay? I don't agree with what I'm going to say here in terms of if I was Art Rooney, I would make the same decision. I think I'd make the opposite. But I find it very hard to believe that the Steelers would let Mike Tomlin go at the end of his contract, even if he did not win a playoff game in 3 years. I do. I think they'd find every excuse in the book, and they would win a couple of games, and there would be that one piece, that one piece there. Why'd you keep Matt Canada? Well, because Kenny Pickett was here. Why'd you keep Mike Tomlin? Well, because the new quarterback was here, or this was here, or that was there. TJ told us to. That's how it would be. So I don't think they'd let him go. I think he could have 3 losing seasons in a row, and I don't think they'd let him go, if I'm going to be honest with you. It'd be bad, but I don't think they would.
The Steelers are a team that really gets a bad case of the yabbits every time somebody talks about getting rid of them. You can have this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. You haven't won a playoff game since then. You haven't made it to the conference championship since then. You haven't done this in the Super Bowl since then. They're going to just say, yeah, but this. And it only has to be one thing, and that'll dissuade them from getting rid of anybody.
Every single time. And that right there is why Tomlin will retire a Steeler unless he chooses to go elsewhere before them. But it won't be the opposite way. I don't think it ever will be.
All right, that's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Remember, tomorrow morning, noon, we are dropping the call-in show. I hope that it is not 2 or 3 voicemails. Let's make it 10. Let's make it 10 voicemails. Let's get it out there, and make sure that if you are a member, you're emailing me so I can call you and answer your questions as well. We appreciate you guys. Enjoy another beautiful, maybe snowy, hopefully not snowy day in the Berg. See you tomorrow. Peace.